Fear is a very curious thing. It is so relative. What will scare you won't scare you. You're afraid every day of something. It might be anxiety, economic trouble, or anticipation of something you have to do. But I defy anybody of mature years to say there's not some kind of fear in his or her head. Joshua Logan, who, if anybody should know more about actors, theater, and direction than most people, had something to say on fear recently which I found very interesting. He was talking in a printed piece about William Holden. Holden is a lad I met when I was making The Seahawk. He was then a fine-looking boy, playing small parts, and quickly afterwards married my leading lady, Brenda Marshall, and they lived happily ever after. I liked Holden very much, although up to that time he had done nothing much. I was the big star, and Bill was beginning. Logan said that he was going to make a picture which called for Holden to be an acrobat, and he wondered whether Bill could qualify. At this meeting, Holden said, "What do you mean, be an acrobat? Look!" And he opened a window with a 6-foot drop and did a handstand on the windowsill. Logan took one horrified look, retreated out of the room, and refused to come back till Holden re-entered the window. "Now do you think I'm okay?" he asked the famous director. Holden explained that when he was a small boy, it was a kick for him and his brother to see who could do a handstand off the highest place. His brother was rescued off the Brooklyn Bridge just doing that. The incident between Logan and Holden was about 10 years ago. I wonder how Holden would feel if he had to do that handstand today. The funny, odd part is I know that William Holden is petrified of getting onto a dance floor. I know he stayed away from the studio one day when he had to do a dance scene. So there is fear for you, not afraid to do the handstand on the window ledge. Holden flips and folds on a dance floor. I wonder now if he has overcome his terror of getting up and pointing the toe, doing an ordinary dance, whatever the hell that is these days. In making Too Much Too Soon, it would have been easy for me to simulate Jack Barrymore's physical characteristics, for I can do, with the lifted eyebrow, an imitation about as good as anyone else's. In fact, I have often, at gatherings, told stories of him and mimicked his motions. Such a fabulous human figure the man was. Jack turned himself into a burlesque of himself at the end, and many who had known him and his work were distressed to see this, because he typified to them the greatest actor they knew or heard of in their lifetime. The public remembered this final phase of his, and they may have come to look upon Jack as a clown, and perhaps they expected to see that in my portrayal. When I started to try to get Jack into focus, I wanted to delve into his inner self, not to imitate him. That was too easy. I wanted to show a man with a heart, a man eaten up inside, as I knew him to be in those final days when I was close to him, a man full of regrets and all ready to die, but with one last thing to live for, the love of his daughter, Diana, his desire to get back her love. I determined that I would stay away from the least suggestion or imitation of manners. That would have been deadly wrong. The only concession I made to that was to try to look like him. To facilitate that, the studio put a tip on the end of my nose which aided in conveying his profile. There was much controversy about my playing him. Some said I was the only one who could do it. Others said I'd foul it up. It was a challenge, because it was almost impossible to be right, whatever you did. I determined I would show the inner Barrymore as I knew him, right or wrong. I would win, lose, or get a draw. For once in my long career, I worked hard at the characterization that I thought should be presented. I tried hard to remember him, to underplay, to underemphasize, and in this way to get nearest to the recesses of the mind and heart of a great human being. For many reasons, the favorite picture in which I played was The Roots of Heaven. This story, by the Frenchman Romain Gary, was one of the most unusual I have ever read. When you pick up a book that some director or producer has asked you to read, you never know what the screenplay is going to be or how close it is going to stick with the original. But first, here was a wonderful work to begin with, a story that interested me, contrary to so many vehicles I have had to appear in. And to that, you have a master showman who wishes to produce it, Darryl Zanuck, and he asks you to be in this picture. Here is a man with all the gambling guts in the world. How he can sit down and decide to spend $4 million with me heading the cast. Naturally, I was fascinated and enthused. The sources of interest in this picture piled up. I had top billing. That was very funny because William Holden was supposed to do this, and I was going to co-star with him. But Holden got into some kind of beef with Paramount, to whom he is under contract, and Zanuck switched to another just as brilliant actor, Trevor Howard. However, when Holden bowed out, I had to take star billing. This was strange because the main burden had to be carried by Howard. Now, add to these factors the point of the story itself. We are organized, and there is Zanuck with the guts and convictions to sink a fortune into a picture which uses elephants as a symbol of the survival of life. Then we go off to French Equatorial Africa to shoot the film. It was a fascinating 6 months, in some ways, the most astonishing period of my life, while new worlds of interest and people and lands opened up. Everybody, almost everybody, got sick. There were 164 people, an English camera crew comprising about a third. About another third were Americans, and the final third French and Italian. This led to a lot of excitement when it came to eating. The French wouldn't eat spaghetti, the Italians wouldn't eat French food, and the Americans wouldn't eat either. It was amusing to sit down with these groups, all seated at different tables, with their varying cultures, manners, beefs, contrasts. French Equatorial Africa is a place anybody can leave off their world itinerary when they take their next vacation. 132 in the shade. We would run short of ice, and that was really torture because we were all absolutely parched. Out of our entire crew, the casualty list, I think I am right about this, was 22 or 24 who got sent back to Rome or to Paris or to London or the United States. The conditions were as fine as Zanuck could make them, but this didn't mean that he could get rid of malaria mosquitoes. This didn't mean that the fresh water you had to get flown down from France would arrive on time. If it didn't, you had to drink the local water. I refused to do that on principle, which may be the reason why I was practically the only one on set who didn't get sick. I stuck with vodka and fruit juices liberally laced with more vodka. Even the ice was made of fresh bottled water, great big cans of sealed pure water. As a result of these conditions, the planes kept flying out with the critically ill. The medical problems ranged from a cut toe to amoebic dysentery, gonorrhea, malaria, but not in that order. One Italian didn't take his anti-malaria pills and caught the most virulent type of African malaria, the mortality rate of which is so tremendously high, and he died. Darryl's son-in-law, a most wonderful-looking young man in the prime of his youth and good shape, had taken his pills regularly. Even so, he was shipped back, out of action, with this malaria, because it was really nothing to fool with. There were about 11 cases of that disease alone. Dysentery accounted for about 5, and almost everybody had a form of that, except me. I would attribute my staying in good health to Smirnoffs, if they promised to send a case a month. There were some rather strange cases of gonorrhea that accounted for about 4. When the company arrived, and before the shooting began, some of the fellows prowled in the villages and got the bug from the local girls. One fellow got a strange African disease, for which he was returned to Paris, and even the Pasteur Institute there couldn't quite identify it. You ask, well, what is so fascinating about all this? Only that it was a challenge in a variety of ways. Things like how to be the last one to get sick, or how to make a horrible experience look like fun, were very important. Personally, I made it fun. I went here mentally determined whatever kind of hell it was going to be, I was going to make it merry for myself and for everybody else, if I could. Yet perhaps I had some preparation for all this. I had been through the New Guinea jungles, worse even than French equatorial Africa, so probably I had a gearing for this that the others didn't. The roads were the most primitive in the world. The French equatorial people were the most colorfully dressed people I've ever seen. They have a natural capacity, it seems, of merging colors. We bounced around, examining the wonderful colored garbs of the Africans wherever we saw them. The materials they used came from France. Johnny Houston had a lust for the outdoors. He lets nothing get in the way of his love for it. I knew about this, and it took a bit of skillful conniving to figure a way for some outdoor action with him. One time, the company had to move from Central Africa down to the Belgian Congo. Houston and I arranged, while this move was taking place, for a private safari. I shall never forget it. I didn't shoot anything. Frankly, I don't like to kill. Beyond that, I don't even like to photograph animals. I just want to look at them. We saw everything. Great surges of elephants, the African fauna with their strange names, the very rare giant eland, a beast said to be the most ferocious in the jungle, the water buffalo. Houston got one of the largest pairs of horns for a trophy, and he was like a kid with his first lollipop. He was obviously very good in the jungle. I thought I was pretty good too, on foot, but this fellow Houston, no youngster, leaped along like a big spider swinging through the trees. Then, the making of the movie itself. You can imagine everybody having to make up properly, sweating, then making up again, all except me. I didn't have to make up. I didn't have any beads of sweat on me. It was there when I woke in the morning. The vodka, the heat, the Flynn sweat all the time. I would get up later than the others, able to save on this makeup time when a half hour meant something. It was tougher for the leading lady, Juliette Greco. They had to take sweat off her, put sweat on others. Howard had a brick red complexion, which, in color, didn't photograph right. So he had to use makeup, a tan, and of course, he was sweating like everybody else. So that went on all the time. Makeup, take it off, put it on, sweat, sweat, sweat. Then a shower of water over your head to cool you off. Put the makeup on again, and 5 minutes later, repeat the same thing. Finally, you play your part. The camera is working. So are you. Naturally, when you pick up a novel and read it, you never know what the screenplay is going to be or how close it is going to stick to it. I had my eye on a special part, the role of Forsyth, and now I was doing it. But, as it is generally the case, the character is developed on the set. When the camera starts to grind, you hope you strike the right tuning note. You hope because you don't know if you will be right. Maybe, it sometimes happens, your performance picks up in the middle of the picture. Now, you are on your own, expecting the help you get from a top director like Houston and your fellow actors. Each actor or actress has an independent approach. There's no standard set of rules, so I can only take myself as an example. Because other people, I'm sure, if they are outstanding personalities of the screen or stage, have their own approach. The stage is a different technique. You have 3 or 4 weeks to rehearse, so that when you come to opening night, you have a fair idea, you hope, of what you're doing. Not so with the screen. Every day, the script changes on the set. So too the location. I was even up to my old tricks, doing my own fearless Flynn stunts when a double might have done just as well. I found myself singing a bawdy Australian song while pretending to be drunk, swimming in an African river and hanging onto a horse's tail, the horse kicking me in the crotch. I was singing, "So you swim to the shore, boys, and I'll save my life. I got to get back by 7 o'clock to get a divorce from me wife." A song my grandfather used to sing to me when I was knee-high in Sydney. I had to continue with the song after swimming this jungle river at Port Archambault. I didn't know that only a week before, a captain in the French army had been seized by a crocodile just a few hundred yards up this African stream. And so, things still interest me when they interest me. When there's a chance to do a job, a picture worth doing, a scene worth shooting, I still steal a march on the warriors about insurance. Since we never had a chance to rehearse in Africa, you just take your best intuitive hold and hope that you're right. If they shoot in continuity, that is, from beginning to end, that is one thing, but it is a very bad thing when they shoot the ending first. That is done because there are so many well-paid people on salary, and the directors and producers must get rid of them fast. Shoot their scenes and get them off the lot. Maybe these people only have a week. I don't think I've ever been in one picture which was shot in continuity. Those people are blessed who have had this happen. It's rare. It may be hard to pick up the next day's shooting because of the whole change of tempo, the disjointed planning, the need to get the whole thing done and out of the way, regardless of time and order. You were given a scene to do, and you must do it. The director doesn't know for sure what is going to happen. He may have an overall scheme in his mind, but he doesn't know how his people are going to behave, or how his camera is going to be, or even where it is going to be. Everybody is in a dark, obscure cloud. It is uncertain and frightening to make a scene where you may have been in the jungle of Africa for 3 days or a week. It may occur to the public, "That's very funny. He's clean-shaven. Why doesn't he have a beard? Does he carry a razor and blades during these horrible things he is going through?" All these details are wearing, trying, nerve-wracking. What boner is being made that the public will see through? Watch it. Watch everything very closely. Watch yourself, because only you can take care of yourself, finally. Everybody else has himself to watch out for. I don't think people realize the effort involved to take care of these apparently minor details. You also don't know what's in the director's mind or the producer's. You must say, "This is the way I see it, and this is the way I'm going to do it. If I'm wrong, then I hope I will get corrected soon enough so I can correct it." It is like a tuning fork. How many of them are there? If you hit one of those chords in the beginning, fine. But supposing you don't? Finally, the artistic slant, the way I do it, is to say to myself, who is this man I am trying to play? Let's suppose the shooting script goes along more or less, but only more or less, the way it is down on paper. Then you say to yourself, the most important thing is for me to keep in character. Since I will have no control over what stage of the story will be shot first, I can only conclude. Here's the way I imagine him. Imagination is the big thing to try to get over on the screen your imaginative process. Without this, you are lost. It is the most essential thing. So much for the roots of heaven, the roots of an actor.